In the luxurious hall of one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, Clara Anderson was treated like a nobody. Glances of disdain and whispers filled with arrogance followed her every move, while the executives present barely concealed their contempt. She was seen as nothing more than an assistant, a woman of no importance. But everything changed in an instant when the magnate Leonard Carlson, one of the most powerful and feared men in the business world, received an unexpected phone call. What he discovered in that moment not only silenced the room, but also changed the fate of everyone there. Clara Anderson, the woman humiliated that night, was in fact the heir to a dormant empire, and the secret behind her name would shake the corporate world to its core. Clara Anderson, 28 years old, is a woman with straight brown hair, deep blue eyes, and an elegant demeanor that hides the weight of her humble origins. She grew up in a poor neighborhood of New York, the daughter of a single mother who struggled to support the family. Clara excelled in her studies from a young age, earning a full scholarship to study business at Harvard. Determined, intelligent, and full of ambition, she landed a job as an executive assistant at Carlson Industries, one of the largest technology companies in the country. However, despite her talent and dedication, she is often underestimated by her colleagues, who see her only as a pretty and efficient secretary, not as someone capable of contributing intellectually. Paul Carlson, the company's CEO, is a pragmatic and cold man, focused solely on results. His younger brother, Mark Carlson, one of the directors, directly supervises Clara. He is charming yet arrogant, constantly making disrespectful remarks about Clara's appearance and making it clear that he sees her as just an assistant. Clara has immense inner resilience, but there are days when Mark's sarcastic comments make her question if she will ever truly be recognized. What no one knows is that Clara hides a secret from her past. Her father, James Anderson, was a successful businessman with a considerable fortune. However, after his mysterious disappearance when Clara was still a teenager, her mother fell into depression, and Clara had to face the ghosts of a possible financial betrayal that destroyed her family's wealth on her own. One afternoon, Clara is focused on reviewing reports when Mark approaches her desk with a sarcastic smile on his face. He tosses a golden invitation in front of her. "Here, Anderson, you're invited to tonight's business dinner," he says without taking his eyes off his phone. "Of course, you'll just be a companion. We need someone to serve coffee and take notes." Clara feels offended by the insinuation, but doesn't show it. She knows this is her chance to be alongside the executives and key investors of Carlson Industries. She had already prepared a presentation with new ideas to improve the company's processes, and this could be her opportunity to finally be heard. Even though she is seen as just an assistant, Clara decides she will attend the dinner with confidence, ready to make herself noticed. Before leaving, she sees Katie, her best friend and colleague, a brilliant programmer who is also often underestimated due to her gender and her lack of interest in corporate power games. Katie advises Clara to be careful. "This kind of event can be a double-edged sword," she says, concerned for her friend. The dinner takes place in a luxurious restaurant in downtown Manhattan. Clara arrives in a simple but elegant dress, her long hair tied up in a bun. Upon entering, she feels the gaze of the powerful men and women present. The room is filled with important figures from the business world, but her eyes are drawn to Leonard Williams, a man in his early 40s. Tall, with gray hair, piercing eyes, and a calculating expression. He is one of the most powerful investors in Carlson Industries, known for his coldness in business and his financial empire built from scratch. Clara feels out of place, but maintains her composure. Mark introduces her to the guests in an almost condescending manner, as if she were just his shadow. "This is Clara, my assistant. She's efficient at what she does," he says, chuckling with the other men at the table. Clara realizes that, to everyone there, she is nothing more than an extra. Leonard watches everything in silence, his eyes fixed on Clara for a few seconds. There's something about him that unnerves her, an intensity that seems to pierce through her cold exterior. She wonders what he is thinking, but she doesn't have time to speculate. The dinner begins, and the conversations about business and investments dominate the atmosphere. As the dinner reaches its peak, Clara tries to join the conversation discreetly. During the discussion about new company projects, she decides to share an innovative idea that could improve the productivity of the internal systems. Her tone is professional, her reasoning flawless. But before she can even finish, Mark interrupts her with a loud laugh. "Clara, dear, this is a conversation for the grown-ups," he says sarcastically, making the others laugh. "Why don't you leave this to us and focus on taking notes?" The laughter echoes around the table, and Clara feels the heat rise to her face. She looks at Mark, then at the other executives, who gaze back at her with disdain. It's a humiliating moment, and the awkward silence that follows only deepens her sense of isolation. She tries to hide her frustration, but inside her confidence is shaken. She feels like her hopes of being recognized are being crushed, and that she's trapped in the same cycle of undervaluation. Leonard, from the other end of the table, watches the scene attentively. His gaze never leaves Clara, but he doesn't intervene. Instead, he just smiles enigmatically, as if he's planning something. Despite the humiliation, Clara decides to keep her head up. However, she notices that Leonard Williams hasn't stopped watching her throughout the dinner. His eyes, once cold, now carry a kind of quiet curiosity, as if he's trying to figure her out. As the conversations shift to other topics, Clara pretends to be absorbed in her notes, but inside, she is on alert. There is something unsettling about that gaze. Leonard is famous for being ruthless in business, and she doesn't know if his interest is good news or bad. She tries to focus on the words around the table, but the weight of that gaze makes her feel vulnerable. Leonard rarely speaks, but when he does, his words are measured and sharp. Something about him makes her feel that he knows more than he lets on. After the humiliation she faced during the dinner, Clara feels a tightness in her throat. Despite all her inner strength, she needs a moment to pull herself together. With discreet steps, she leaves the table and heads toward the bathroom. Upon entering, she checks if she's alone, then leans against the marble sink. Staring at her reflection with eyes full of tears she refuses to let fall. Clara takes a deep breath, whispering to herself that she won't let this bring her down. "You've been through worse," she murmurs, recalling the tough days after her father's disappearance, when her mother fell into a severe depression and Clara had to work while studying to support the household. The humiliation at the dinner was small compared to the pain of the past. As she tries to calm herself, Clara's phone vibrates in her purse. She takes it out and sees a message from an unknown number. "You are stronger than you think. Don't let yourself break. Leonard." Clara is surprised and confused. How did Leonard Williams, the enigmatic and impassive millionaire, get her number? And why would he send such a message now? With her heart racing, she puts the phone away without replying. As puzzling as the message might be, Clara decides she doesn't have time to dwell on it. She dries her eyes, fixes her hair, and steps out of the bathroom, determined to return to the table with her head held high. But in her mind, the questions keep spinning. After the humiliation she faced during the dinner, Clara feels a tightness in her throat. Despite all her inner strength, she needs a moment to pull herself together. With discreet steps, she leaves the table and heads toward the bathroom. Upon entering, she checks if she's alone, then leans against the marble sink. Staring at her reflection with eyes full of tears she refuses to let fall. Clara takes a deep breath, whispering to herself that she won't let this bring her down. "You've been through worse," she murmurs, recalling the tough days after her father's disappearance, when her mother fell into a severe depression and Clara had to work while studying to support the household. The humiliation at the dinner was small compared to the pain of the past. As she tries to calm herself, Clara's phone vibrates in her purse. She takes it out and sees a message from an unknown number. "You're stronger than you think. Don't let yourself break. Leonard." Clara is surprised and confused. How did Leonard Williams, the enigmatic and impassive millionaire, get her number? And why would he send such a message now? With her heart racing, she puts the phone away without replying. As puzzling as the message might be, Clara decides she doesn't have time to dwell on it. She dries her eyes, fixes her hair, and steps out of the bathroom, determined to return to the table with her head held high. But in her mind, the questions keep spinning. The next day, Leonard, intrigued by Clara's strength and composure after the dinner, asks his assistant, Max Harper, to look into her background. Max is efficient and discreet, known for uncovering any secret that one might try to hide. Within a few hours, he returns with a complete dossier on Clara, and Leonard finds himself surprised. Clara Anderson wasn't just an ambitious young woman working as an assistant in a large corporation. She was the daughter of James Anderson, one of the most promising entrepreneurs of the 90s, who mysteriously disappeared over a decade ago, leaving behind a considerable fortune and numerous speculations about what happened to him. The financial scandal that followed his absence left the family in ruins. Clara's mother, Linda, fell into a deep depression, and the rest of the Anderson fortune vanished in a series of failed ventures and frauds that destroyed the family's reputation. Leonard, who knew the Anderson name very well, is impressed that Clara never used her past as a stepping stone in her career. While most people would try to leverage any family connection, Clara chose to forge her own path, keeping her name almost anonymous. This intrigued Leonard even more, as it showed that she was far more resilient and determined than anyone there might have imagined. The next morning, Clara arrives at the office, ready to face another day of work. She still feels the weight of the previous night's dinner, but she maintains her composure as always. However, to her surprise, shortly after sitting at her desk, she is called into an impromptu meeting with Paul Carlson, the company's CEO, and other executives. As she enters the conference room, Clara almost loses her breath when she sees Leonard sitting at the table. Her heart races, but she forces herself to stay calm. Leonard looks directly at her, his penetrating gaze making her feel exposed. The other executives also seem surprised by the millionaire's presence, as he rarely makes unexpected visits to the company's headquarters. During the meeting, Leonard remains silent while Paul discusses plans for a new company expansion project. But at one point, Leonard interrupts and directs a question specifically to Clara about the feasibility of one of the proposals. The room falls silent. All eyes turn to her. Clara takes a deep breath and responds confidently, presenting her detailed analysis. Leonard seems satisfied with her answer, and the dynamic shifts. He wasn't there just for business. He was interested in seeing how Clara handled pressure. After the meeting, Leonard asks to speak with Clara privately. The other executives, including Mark, exchange puzzled looks, but Clara follows Leonard to his private office. In the office, Leonard finally opens up. He reveals that he knows who she really is and that he was already familiar with her father, James Anderson. Clara is stunned for a moment, her heart racing. She had spent so much time trying to keep her past hidden, and now it was laid bare before the most powerful man she had ever met. "Why did you never use your family name?" Leonard asks, his voice low and calculated. "You could have used that connection to climb the career ladder." Clara takes a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. "I didn't want people to see me as James Anderson's daughter. I wanted to achieve everything on my own, without favors or pity." Leonard watches her intently, his eyes never leaving hers. He seems impressed, but also intrigued. "You have much more courage than many I've known, Clara." She doesn't know if that's a compliment or a test. Leonard then offers a proposal she never would have imagined. He wants to help her reclaim her family's legacy. Leonard believes there is more to James Anderson's disappearance that needs to be uncovered, and he wants Clara by his side to discover the truth. Clara is stunned by Leonard's proposal. Her eyes widen, and for a moment, she struggles to find words. What does he want in return? Could this be a trap? Leonard, however, remains impassive, his gray eyes seeming to pierce through the deepest layers of Clara's mind. "Why would you do this for me?" Clara finally finds her voice. "Why are you so interested in my family?" Leonard stands up and walks slowly to the window, watching the frenetic movement of New York outside. He sighs, as if revealing a carefully guarded secret. "Your father, James Anderson, was one of the few men I respected. He didn't play the game like others. There was an integrity in him that I rarely see in the business world. His disappearance was a mystery that shook many powerful people, and I believe he was a victim of something much bigger. Clara watches Leonard cautiously. She always knew there was more to her father's disappearance than the stories that circulated at the time. The rumors of fraud or fleeing never made sense to her, but there wasn't enough evidence to investigate further. "You think he was murdered?" Clara asks, her voice trembling at the thought. She had always feared this possibility, but never had the courage to say it out loud. Leonard turns back to her, his gaze intense and serious. "I don't make assumptions, Clara. I conduct investigations, and I have contacts that can help uncover the truth. But I need you by my side because you have something I don't: the Anderson name and the legitimate right to reclaim everything that was taken from your family." Clara feels torn. Part of her wants to reject the offer, to continue her life without more complications. But there is something about Leonard that makes her hesitate. He is not a man who makes empty promises. Moreover, this could be her only chance to clear her father's name and restore her heritage. The opportunity to finally understand what happened. After a moment of reflection, Clara makes her decision. "I accept," she says firmly, "but under one condition. I want to be in control. I want to be heard and respected as a partner in this process." With the deal sealed, Clara begins working directly with Leonard on confidential projects. He gives her access to exclusive information about businesses involving large sums of money and, more importantly, about powerful people who might be connected to her father's disappearance. Clara dives headfirst into the investigations, balancing her work at Carlson Industries with the increasingly complex tasks Leonard assigns her. Clara's shift in demeanor is immediately noticed at the office. Mark Carlson, who always treated her as an insignificant assistant, starts to realize that Clara now has Leonard's attention, which deeply bothers him. To him, it is unacceptable that a mere assistant could be gaining so much prominence. One afternoon, Clara presents an innovative proposal during a strategic meeting with the company's board. Paul Carlson, the CEO, listens with interest, but Mark tries to interrupt her multiple times, questioning her ideas and attempting to undermine her in front of others. However, this time, Clara is prepared, with confidence and determination. She counters all of Mark's arguments, using precise data and impeccable logic. Paul, impressed by Clara's performance, supports her proposal, which is approved. Mark leaves the meeting in anger, but Clara remains unfazed. She knows she is finally showing her true worth. Additionally, Leonard watches from afar, observing how she asserts herself and stands out. More and more, Clara starts to become an undeniable force within the company. Feeling threatened by Clara's rise, Mark decides he needs to act. He cannot accept that someone he had disregarded for so long is now on the verge of surpassing him in influence and power within the company. Mark's envy and resentment grow by the day, and he begins to plan a way to take Clara down. Mark, who has always maintained a network of questionable contacts, forms a secret alliance with Emily, an ex-lover of his who works in the company's finance department. Together, they plot a scheme to frame Clara. Emily manipulates the data from one of Clara's new projects, making it appear as though she diverted company funds to offshore accounts. Mark plans to expose the supposed fraud in a high-level meeting, destroying her reputation and removing her from any position of power. However, Clara begins to notice something strange. One of the numbers in the financial reports doesn't add up. She realizes that something is wrong and decides to investigate further before presenting the project. With the help of Katie, her loyal friend and programmer, they discover the tampering in the data. Mark's betrayal is a devastating revelation for Clara, not only because he tried to destroy her, but also because she realizes that there has always been a darker side to corporate relationships that she had tried to ignore. On the day of the big meeting, Mark is ready to expose Clara, confident that she won't be able to defend herself. But to his surprise, Clara shows up with a complete dossier that exposes the entire fraud. She not only proves her innocence, but also reveals the suspicious activities of Mark and Emily. The board is shocked, and Paul Carlson has no choice but but to suspend Mark from his duties while an investigation is conducted. Clara, who had previously faced moments of humiliation and disdain, now finds herself in the spotlight for a completely different reason. She is the company's hero, the woman who uncovered a conspiracy and prevented the company from losing millions. After the meeting, Leonard finds her in the hallway. "You handled that brilliantly," he says with a look of approval. "I had good teachers," Clara responds, referring both to Leonard and her own journey of overcoming challenges. But deep down, she knows there is still much to be done. Her father's past continues to haunt her, and she feels that she is only beginning to uncover the dark secrets surrounding the Anderson family. As time goes by, Clara and Leonard begin to develop a deeper connection. Although they initially kept their relationship strictly professional, the closeness and intensity of the challenges they face together start to create emotional tension between them. Leonard, previously seen as an impenetrable and calculating man, begins to show a more vulnerable side to Clara. One evening, after a tense meeting about the company's new ventures, Leonard invites Clara to dinner. Unlike their usual formal encounters, this dinner takes place in a more discreet restaurant, away from the corporate spotlight. The conversation, initially about work, soon changes in tone. Leonard talks about his own difficult childhood, about how he built his empire from nothing, and how deep down, he too was an outsider, just like Clara. Clara's gaze softens. For the first time, she sees Leonard as more than a mentor or business partner. He is also a man who has suffered, who has faced his own demons. The attraction between them, once contained, now becomes palpable. The dinner ends with Leonard driving Clara back to her apartment. At the door, they exchange a deep look, and before Clara can think of all the reasons why this shouldn't happen, Leonard kisses her, an intense kiss full of repressed passion. It's the beginning of a romance that will be filled with as much love as it will with complications and intrigue. Enraged and humiliated by the exposure of his betrayal, Mark decides not to leave without a fight. He plans one last desperate move to regain his power, knowing that the only thing that could destroy Clara once and for all is to expose her family's secret. Mark begins digging deeper into the disappearance of James Anderson. He manages to uncover information about a shady deal between James and some international investors. If revealed, this information could imply that Clara's father was involved in illegal business before his disappearance. Mark threatens to expose everything publicly, but Clara and Leonard, already prepared, anticipate his move. Leonard uses his vast network of contacts to finally bring Mark down. They reveal evidence that he was not only involved in fraud within the company, but also in illicit dealings with competitors. With Mark out of the picture and her reputation restored, Clara becomes a key figure at Carlson Industries. Paul Carlson, finally recognizing her value, promotes her to Director of Innovation, one of the highest positions in the company. Now, she is no longer an underestimated assistant, but a powerful leader who earned her place through determination and skill. Clara also begins to realize that the path she has walked has transformed her into a much stronger and more resilient woman. She endured humiliation, betrayal, and internal struggles, but emerged more determined than ever. She now has control over her destiny and is ready to claim what is rightfully hers. With Leonard's help, Clara begins to recover her family's lost assets. They discover that much of James Anderson's fortune was hidden in secret investments around the world. Clara decides that she will not only recover her family's inheritance, she will expand it. She reopens her father's old company, Anderson Enterprises, and begins transforming it into an even bigger empire than before. Using everything she learned in the business world, and with Leonard by her side, Clara starts conquering new markets, solidifying her position as one of the most powerful and influential women in the country. Although Clara and Leonard's relationship started on shaky ground, they are now closer than ever. However, they both know that their romance won't be easy. Leonard is a man accustomed to controlling everything around him, and Clara, in turn, refuses to be submissive or dependent on anyone. They decide to move forward cautiously, giving each other space to grow individually, but also recognizing that together, they are an unstoppable force. The love between them is intense, but they understand that they need to balance their ambitions with their relationship. Clara Anderson, now a successful and powerful woman, looks to the future with confidence. She has not only restored her family's name, but also created something even bigger. With Leonard by her side, she is ready to face new challenges, knowing that no matter what happens, she is capable of overcoming any obstacle. Her journey is far from over, but now, with the experience and strength she has gained, Clara is prepared to write her own destiny, and nothing or no one will stop her from reaching the top. Clara is finally at the top. With Leonard by her side, the Anderson empire flourishes, and her name becomes synonymous with power and success. But just when everything seems to be falling into place, an unexpected event turns her world upside down. One night, Clara receives an envelope with no return address. Inside, there is a single sheet with 3 words that freeze her in place. He is alive. The handwritten message makes Clara relive her worst nightmare, the mysterious death of her father, James Anderson. Feeling her heart race, she decides not to tell Leonard and resolves to investigate on her own. The next day, Clara follows the anonymous clues, which lead her to a remote psychiatric hospital. There, she discovers that a man who had been institutionalized for years is none other than her father, James. He had been alive all this time, kept in captivity under a false identity, a victim of a conspiracy much larger than Clara could have imagined. James is frail, barely remembering his own daughter, but one thing is clear. He knows something dangerous. "Don't trust Leonard," James whispers with difficulty, in one of the few coherent sentences he can manage. Shaken, Clara returns to her normal life, trying to hide the inner chaos. Her father's words echo in her mind. How could Leonard be involved? The man who helped her rebuild her life and her inheritance. Even so, she decides to follow her instincts and re-examine all recent decisions. That's when she finds the first clue. Secret financial documents hidden in one of Leonard's offices, indicating that he had control over a series of shell companies, the very same ones linked to her father's disappearance. As she digs deeper, Clara uncovers something even more shocking. Leonard was behind the disappearance of James Anderson. The devastating truth comes to light. Leonard, in his quest to expand his empire, struck a deal with international investors who wanted control of James' companies. To achieve this, Leonard orchestrated James' kidnapping and kept him drugged and out of sight for all these years, while taking control of the Anderson empire through Clara. In shock, Clara knows she can't confront Leonard directly. He's too dangerous and has too much influence. But she is no longer the vulnerable woman she once was. Clara plans a silent, precise revenge. She begins to play the same game Leonard always played, from behind the scenes. Using her intelligence and the contacts she has built, Clara secretly gathers evidence of all of Leonard's illicit activities. She forms alliances with investors he betrayed and convinces old enemies to turn against him, setting up a trap. At a crucial business meeting, where Leonard plans to solidify his control over new markets, Clara shows up unexpectedly with all the evidence in hand. The directors and investors are stunned as Leonard is exposed. But before they can act, Leonard, realizing what is happening, attempts to flee. Leonard's escape triggers an international manhunt. With the support of the authorities and her new allies, Clara tracks his movements. After weeks of pursuit, Leonard is finally captured at a hideout abroad. He doesn't go down without a fight, trying to bribe and threaten, but he's surrounded on all sides. In one final moment of tension, Leonard locks eyes with Clara. "You're more like me than you think," he says with a cruel smile. But Clara, now a stronger and more ruthless woman, remains unfazed. "The difference is I don't destroy lives to win." Leonard is taken away in handcuffs, his empire in ruins, his name erased from history. With Leonard out of the picture, Clara becomes the true heir of the Anderson empire. But the journey doesn't end there. She discovers that her father, though frail, held even deeper secrets about the global connections Leonard maintained. Clara decides to turn this network into something positive, using her influence to build new alliances and correct the wrongs of the past. As she looks to the horizon, knowing more challenges will come, Clara smiles. She has defeated not only her enemies, but also the ghosts that haunted her for so long. Now, with no one left to stop her, she is ready to lead not just an empire, but a legacy that will change the world. Future belongs to Clara Anderson, and this time, there will be no more hidden surprises. She is in control,